Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Sister Friends. It Takes a Village. My name is LaToya Archibald. I'm a Ward 7 resident in Deanwood, in Washington, D.C., and I'm also the founder and chief doula with the DC Doula. And I just want to thank Mayor Bowser, the Thrive team, everyone working to support the sound and AV who's worked so diligently to make this summit happen. Maternal and infant health is super important, and I'm grateful to be invited to hold space here. So thank you so much for joining us this morning rather. I moved to Washington, D.C. about 17 years ago to attend Howard University. It was there that I met my first group of chosen sister friends. These are women from all over the country who care for me, who challenge me, who cheer for me, who check me, who choose me. And time and time again, we've seen each other through partnerships, through businesses, through pregnancies, through relationships, through situationships, through tragic loss, and huge wins. Specifically, when it comes to maternal and infant health, these are women, some women that I've been able to walk through as their doula. These are women that I've just walked through to hold their hand as they are trying to decide whether or not they want to have kids. These are women who, similar to me, are not partnered or not married and are trying to decide if that's something that we really want. And then sort of like know that that's something that we really want and being on and have these honest conversations with each other about these things. And so it has just been so refreshing, so magical, so necessary to have sister friend relationships. I don't know where I would be without them. And as I think about what we're experiencing now with COVID-19 and the racial revolution that's going on out in the world, specifically in the United States, it's been so refreshing, so mandatory to have strong relationships with women in my life. And so today, I want to introduce you to some of the women who have made a difference in my life, women who I consider sister friends, women who have chosen me, and I continue to choose them too. And so I kind of want to give you a chance to meet them, and I want them to share a little bit about their journey. And I'm going to introduce them, or rather, I'll have them introduce themselves in the order of the amount of time that I've known them. So I'm going to start off with Brittany.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, LaToya. My name is Brittany Young. I am a middle school learning specialist at the Norwood School. And so my mommy journey, I was thrust into motherhood, really. I married a DC native in 2011. And then during our first year of marriage, he's also in the DC Army National Guard. And for our first year of marriage, he went off to Afghanistan. And so he was gone for a year. And then when he returned, we eventually got pregnant with our first child, who's now 7, Aaron Jr. Then when Aaron Jr. he was 6 months old, we found out that we were also going to have twins. And so that was a lot.
Yeah.
It was scary. I went to counseling because I was grieving the fact that I wasn't going to, bounce back and snap back and, gain myself again. And then when we had twins, we moved to California to move in with my parents so we could get help with our 3 babies because we had 3 babies. And while in California, although I was so grateful to have my mom and dad's help, it was really hard not being with my sister friends, the ones that had kids and those that didn't have kids. My sister friends, I've realized while in California, not having my circle, that my sister friends are the people that remind me that I am more than a mom. And so that's a little bit about me, my mommy journey, and the importance of my sister circle.
Thanks, Brittany. Next we'll have Courtney.
Hi, my name is Courtney Douglas, And among other things, I'm a PhD student, I'm an educator, also a birth worker, I'm a huge Golden Girls fan, as well as a hopeful parent. So I'm originally from Tallahassee, Florida, but I've been in DC about 13 years now. And, when people ask me, like, oh, what's it like? I always say that it feels like home. And so I kind of journeyed here on my own, independently, kind of trying to pursue school or career. And what's really made it like my home and like my city has been community. And I think I really have just benefited from the relationships with women that have really poured into me, just kind of throughout my time here. And even kind of looking back at my journey, it's been really just an honor, I think, as my roots have kind of grown deeper here, to be able to be that sort of like family to other women in the area. And so along my journey to motherhood, I've had some, I guess you could call them speed bumps. And so one of those being that, at 35, I thought I'd already be married with children by now. I'm currently very single. And so in addition to that, I have a PCOS diagnosis, and a couple years ago, actually had to have an emergency surgery to have one of my ovaries removed. So through that experience, I've just sort of experienced a lot of questions and grieving and frustrations, and it's been necessary on my journey to have that space with other women who allow me to sort of like ask these crazy questions now that I'm sort of thinking through in terms of, what does it mean to start a non-traditional family, or how do I reconcile like my faith with not being sure how I feel about, what does God think about sperm donors, and, what would it be to choose to be a single mom? And so I think even right now, as I sort of like wrestle through those things, and I don't necessarily have answers, but, as a birth worker, have been able to witness, what it is to see the birth of a mother, or even just childbirth in general. It's like, I know 1,000% that I want that for myself. And even though today I don't know what it's going to look like, I'm really thankful for the women who I know are going to be part of my life and part of my support team once I do figure that out.
Thank you, Courtney. Next we have Malika.
Thank you, LaToya, and hello, everyone. So I am Malika Fair. I have been in DC for 11 years. I came here primarily for a job. I'm an emergency physician, so my first job out of residency is at GW, and I'm still on faculty there. I also work at the Association of American Medical Colleges as a senior director of health equity partnerships and programs. So when I got to DC, even though I was here professionally and I had a lot of friends from college, it really wasn't until 2015 where DC felt like home. So I got married, and we moved to a wonderful neighborhood in Ward 7 called Hillcrest. And that's where I felt that I was supposed to be here. Everything was working out the way I hoped it was going to. And I was excited to begin this journey towards motherhood. And so I envisioned being able to raise a family with my husband in Hillcrest and have the support of my neighbors, my friends, my family, who are all across the country. And things didn't quite work out according to my plan. So I had a really long journey of infertility and ended up doing multiple rounds of IVF. And along my journey to motherhood, so I did become a mother, thank God, last November to a wonderful baby girl. But along that pathway, my husband suddenly passed away of a heart attack. And this totally derailed my life and my plans. And I thought it derailed my life and my plan, but God had other plans. And I'm really glad that He's brought me to this place of being a mother, and all the things that I thought I needed to be a mom, He provided. And so that includes, a wonderful family and the sister friends that I have both here in DC, across the nation, including LaToya, who served as my doula and helping to raise Kira with me, especially during the pandemic. So it's just been quite a journey that I wouldn't want anyone to follow my exact path, because there was some really, really significant lows, but the highs have been amazing, and I'm just so grateful.
Thank you, Malika. And Cherie.
Well, LaToya, first, thank you for just putting all this together, connecting us. And I feel really privileged to just get to connect with these other women. I'm Cherie, and I am actually at the end of homeschooling. I homeschool two girls. One's through college, one's just going into college. So that's what I've been doing for the last 17 years, along with little bits and pieces of this and that. Prior to that, I was in international development where I worked for USAID and then ran the AME Churches Development Agency. But most recently, just the joy of hanging out with my girls and my other my godchildren and my nieces. So I can truly say that the women in my life have been lifelines. My mom, my aunties, my friends, and my sisters. They have been the ones that have enabled me, I want to say, to nurture my girls and to love them well. I have two daughters, as I said. I moved to DC 28 years ago when I got married to Lorenzo. We were both had moved around a lot growing up. His dad was foreign service, my dad was military. So we were really excited about planting ourselves and figuring out what does it feel like and what does it mean to establish roots in a community. And that was something we wanted to give our family. And so maybe 5 years into our marriage, we thought, all right, we're ready to start a family. And, when you think you're ready to do something, Malika, much like what you just said, you just think it's going to happen. Not so with me. I did get pregnant, but I kept having miscarriages. I had several miscarriages prior to having my first daughter, Jordan, who was 2 months premature. And that was after 5 months of bed rest in order to do that. And both girls required bed rest. And I can tell you that if it weren't for my sister Chantel and my dearest friend Pam, who moved down the street from me and who was an ER physician, so she really understood what was going on with my body and really was on top of me to stay in bed and do all the things. I don't know what would have happened. I mean, I can't imagine life without these women in my life, and they have been with me through the grieving. They have been with me through the anxiety, their words of wisdom, counsel, support, all the things that you count on through the joys have just, again, I don't even want to think about not having them in my life. And so I'll just leave it at there so we can get into our conversation, which I can't wait.
Thank you, Cherie, and thank all of you. I'm super excited for this talk. So I'm gonna relax my shoulders.
Yeah, relax.
I don't have my Spanx on because y'all don't have to see the bottom half of what I got going on. So I'm ready to chat it up. So okay.
All right.
So, Brittany, pre-mommy journey, what was your view on close female relationships? Like, what'd you think?
Yeah, I've always been a girl's girl. Like, I'm so grateful that God brought me to Howard and that, I ended up having a crew of women and like that, we could lean on each other, cry with each other, laugh, yeah, so that's my answer to that. Like, mommy, like, I was down with the homies.
I'll add too that I've always been a girl's girl, and I'm very fortunate to have biological sisters. I have two sisters, an older sister and a younger sister, and I don't use the term sister-in-law. I have a sister-in-love, and so having three sisters in my life set the bar for any of my other female friendships throughout my life, and of course having a wonderful mom too. And I think that I value my biological relationships, but that it gives me a window in terms of these other relationships that I have to say, this is what it feels like to have a sister, and this is how to build this community of women.
Yeah.
And I've just been able to be very fortunate to have this community all over the country.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree too, Malika. I'm one of four, and I'm the oldest girl, and it's four girls. And then my dad had five sisters, so this man was just surrounded by women. But you're right, just the connection to women, it was always there. And then I think also growing up, watching my mom, we're a military family, and watching how the women connected really well and kind of quickly to support one another in the different, all the things that they had to do. So I saw that and I valued it, and it was always something that was very important to me.
Yeah, I'm one of five girls and one boy, and my sisters are some of my best friends now. I love it. And I think I was like, oh, I want to have guy friends, but I just know that I wouldn't be able to share with them in the way that I have been, with my girlfriends, with my sister friends. I'm grateful for the men in my life, but I couldn't do it without the ladies. So very similar.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm highly introverted, and have felt sort of independent for most of my life. And I think I can kind of have this idea that I'm I'm good. I'll just do my own thing. And then when I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's always been just circles of women that at just different points in my life are usually kind of connected to a specific purpose that then just blossom into, these just really meaningful and long lasting relationships that why did I think that I was just out here doing stuff on my own? I need
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad to have you around, Courtney. Thank you for sticking it out. I'm grateful. So, Malika, how have relationships with women positively impacted your motherhood journey? What's that look like?
So, my motherhood journey was complicated by grieving at the same time, both grieving my husband as a partner, but also as the father of my daughter. So I had to kind of reset what that was going to look like. And my sisters, my sister friends, helped me to continue that journey and enjoy it when my body and my mind wasn't always there. Mm-hmm. And so they would make sure that I was still getting my hair done, and they would drive me and take me out to dinner, and they'd make sure I have my spa days and just things that I would have just sat around the house for 9 months, but they made sure that I was well taken care of. And when I didn't even want any celebrations, I didn't want a shower, I didn't want anything, and they continued to find creative ways, very creative, to celebrate me anyway. And I'm so grateful. One of the things that I didn't even anticipate was I wanted to spend my maternity leave back in Michigan with my family. And so I figured, I'm a traveler, so I know how to pack up and go anywhere in a minute's notice, but completely different when you have a child. But my friends in Michigan anticipated exactly what I was going to need there and set up the entire room for me. And I wouldn't have known to ask. I didn't even know I needed that. But they just showed up for me, and I'm just super grateful.
That's beautiful.
That's so spot on what you said about when your body and your mind aren't there, your sister friends are the ones that come in and just provide you with what you need, help you be present, snap you back to reality. I just remember with LaToya going to California at 35 weeks pregnant with twins and the little baby, because my husband couldn't come with us, and we were getting on a plane, and I just was still in shock that I still had to move to California because I didn't initially want to go. But it was having LaToya there with me, since I didn't have my partner with me. I had my girl with me to just help me take each step, like get on the plane, sit down, let me take AJ. Like, so yes, when your body and mind aren't there, it's your sister friends that step in.
That's good. That's good. Did you have like a set of go-to girls like Cherie? And how did you like decide how you were going to pick them?
I will say that my sister Chantel, you guys who have sisters, you know, those were I had built-in go-to girls. But my friendship with Pam evolved, and she actually, it's so interesting. We were talking about that. She actually pursued me, and she's an ER physician, like I said. So she was like, Cherie, I really want you to mentor me, and we're the same age, and this was like 20 something years ago. And I said, are you kidding me? You're a physician. I should be sitting at your feet because you know how to do that. And so we just had this. We just developed this friendship. And when she moved here from California, she was actually on her way to South Africa. That's where they were going to move to. And she was pregnant. And so I was with her when she had her first baby, and that kind of bonded us. And then when she stayed here, when I got pregnant, and then she was with me, like I said, through all the miscarriages, I remember Pam giving me some really good counsel. Like she was at every point with me. She said, Cherie, when we were like, okay, we've made it from one trimester to the next. It looks like it's going to be okay. But I still had all this fear, all this anxiety. And she said, you know, you're going to need to start giving this baby to the Lord right now. You're going to have to start trusting him more and more. You know, he's with you, he's okay. And those words never left me. And we were in a car going around, I want to say one of the circles in DC. It was a quick conversation. But when you have those friends who know you know, they can get deep, cut really deeply, very quickly and give you that word that you need. But yeah, that was an evolving go-to friendship, the time and consistency. Came into play, but and then Chantel, who's always been there, and my other two sisters, Sherelle. Let me say their names.
Courtney, I was going to ask, you know, thinking about when you got connected to doing birth work here in Washington, D.C., a question from the audience wants to know sort of just like, how did you get connected there? And what did it look like to form like relationships, kind of go-to relationships with the other women that you were doing birth work with?
Sure. So I did my my birth work training through Mama Toto Village. And so I think one of the pivotal aspects for me was like being able to go through this, 9-month long training with about 12 other women. And so through this process of just like learning a lot and spending all of our weekends together, we really just, sort of just formed this sisterhood. And so I think through, our own challenges and sort of going out, on births together, or sort of like being backups for each other, or even just having a lot of questions about like, where do I want to go in this work? Or like, what makes sense for me? And sort of how do we kind of like make sense of the big picture and then our like specific and unique gifts. It's just been, like a friendship and a sisterhood that I think, I have a sister and I have really good friends, like kind of going into it. Again, wasn't like, oh, these are going to be like, my people forever. But now it's like, oh my gosh, like we have monthly meetings, we talk all the time. And we're able to kind of continue to, just really push each other forward in figuring out what it looks like personally, but also sort of professionally.
Mm-hmm. If I can just hop on to what you just said at the very end there about going in, you have a sister, you already have friends, and sometimes at a certain age, you're like, I'm good. I have my community. And there always is this thought that you can't create you can't develop new friendships, especially, later in life, but it's just not true. And I feel, especially going through this motherhood journey, that I've been able to develop new friendships that I didn't know were even possible, and friendships with women who were friends of my husband or the wives of friends of his, that they have also been really helpful during this journey.
Yeah, super, super important for that. I know that as I think about, navigating like motherhood, someone else also wondering sort of like how to get connected with other DC moms and pregnant mom groups, ways to get connected in that way. I will say, I recommend District Motherhood. It's DC's premier mom group for moms of color. And it's started by a young woman who was a student of mine when I was doing campus ministry at Howard University. Her name is Simona Noche, Wright. Just an amazing woman, an amazing mom. And beyond that, she's a great sister friend. I've seen how well she values relationships with women. And so it just naturally blossomed into an amazing organization. So Simona and Nikki, thank you for doing all that amazing work with District Motherhood. And obviously it's open to women in Washington, D.C., but also outside of the area. Are there any other sort of things that were important, I guess, to you, Brittany, when you were identifying like your go-to girls?
So I was blessed to like have close friends of mine also get pregnant around the same time. And I feel like that was purposed, like that we've been able to walk through different milestones together and our kids get to connect with one another. So that's been a blessing. But when I first got pregnant, I also was intentional about going to library story times. Not pregnant, but when AJ was first born, going to library story times or doing different mommy meetup groups to meet other women of various backgrounds so that I could build a mommy community. Because I realized as you guys are talking, I didn't grow up with sisters, and I realized that has been super important to me to build up a sisterhood, a sistership with other women. So
that's good. And so sister friend relationships aren't always sunshine and roses. I mean, I'm thinking about my relationship with my sisters, my little sisters. We love each other so much, but we've had some arguments, some different things. So shout outs to Crystal and Giovanna and Takita. I love y'all. But what does it look like to navigate those relationships, particularly when opposing views on what mothering looks like or how to become a mom, might look like, and just raising your children? How have you been able to navigate those things? What are some things that have popped up that have been opposing, and how do you continue to walk with each other even when those things happen? Malika, would you like to start?
Sure. So I have to start, of course, and shout out my sisters, Denise, Leslie, and Weddy. And even with my own sisters, two of which are mothers, and my sister friends, I had to keep in mind that we are on parallel but not identical journeys, and that my child is unique. But it's hard because there's a comparison game that you're always playing, and you want to take everybody's advice to heart, but it just doesn't always apply to your kid. And so, we've definitely had some uncomfortable moments and conversations where I felt like people were overstepping their beyond giving advice, giving criticism that wasn't always constructive. Mm-hmm. But I think that keeping it in my head that this is my journey, this is my calling, this is my child, and I have to figure out what works best for her. And I can take all the advice, but take it into consideration and not feel that other people are trying to tell me how to raise my own child.
Yeah. I know, Britt, you had some conflicting views on, or even just what it looked like dealing with comparison for how you chose to feed versus how another person chose to feed their child. What that look like for you?
Yeah. I'm a non-confrontational person, so it was never like external conflict, like combative, but it was always an internal conflict for me. That like when people would talk about breastfeeding their babies, and I really tried and I really wanted to, but it just didn't work out for us long term. So like initially those conversations would really weigh on me and I'd feel guilty. But I'm really grateful, like even though I didn't grow up with sisters, now that I'm an adult, my mom has become like, also, a sister friend, like, and she's always been my support and advocate in terms of just like, do you like do what's best for your child. And like Malika was saying, every child is unique and different and special. And every mommy journey is unique and different and special. And so I've now become an advocate too. Like when I just talk to other women who are moms, like, do you? People are going to have a whole bunch of stuff to say and, suggestions for you, but listen to your heart, listen to God, and like you and your child will be okay.
I was going to just say something real quick. I think related to just not having children yet, and I know LaToya and I have had some of these different conversations, but I think being in a space where like I'm not necessarily in a place to have like disagreements yet, but because of some of the work that I do and just kind of being a former teacher, I have like, just sort of like different ideas around like, educating children. So definitely being interested in homeschooling, interested in unschooling, looking at sort of just like alternative ways to kind of thinking about parenting. And I think I've been in a space that's unique that allows me to kind of like just ask questions that maybe like sound kind of like crazy, but because I don't have kids, they're not like, girl, what are you doing yet? But they're kind of like, oh, that's how you lean in, okay. But it gives me sort of just like the opportunity to even just kind of ask questions to people like, oh, like how did you choose to do this, or why did you do this, and sort of like, well, what do you think about that? And I think for me, kind of to your earlier question about like how you choose the people that are your girls, it's like, even if I, maybe do some shit I think is crazy, it's like they're for me, and I think that's kind of like what sustains even in what, can be challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Cherie.
No, I would say, and I would definitely agree that, you do have to be comfortable with your own boundaries. You do have to be comfortable with, like you said, each child is different. We're unique. And I think we're all given for all of our lives, that this unction, this knowing for how to make good choices, this wisdom for ourselves in certain situations. I homeschooled, and 20 years ago, that was not as popular of a choice. And I will say I come from a family of educators, and I have very strong women in my life. My aunts were all teachers, and they all had something to say about this choice. This choice. But yeah, you have to graciously kind of hear it, but not let it always influence your ultimate decisions. There's sometimes you hear some stuff and you're like, yeah. Or even if you hear opposition, I found, well, let me think through that. Let me consider it. Let me think through that. And then I think also just the broader context of friendships, knowing oneself too is helpful. So I remember early on in my friendship with Pam, I said, look, I could tell how she was, very precise, and I'm not. So I said, look, well, let's just know that I'm going to give you many opportunities to exercise that virtue of forgiveness. So you get to, and it kind of just lets us know, yeah, we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to show up perfect. We might disagree on some things, but where's the grace? Where's the forgiveness? This is a life, this is a relationship. So, yeah.
That's good. I was thinking about, so as an auntie, sister friend, I mean, I don't have kids either yet, but have grown more and more into a desire for them. I was thinking about how it's been beautiful to like navigate this journey with friends who do have kids. But I could also just sort of take it back to when some of my close friends were starting to get married, and people were kind of like partnering off. I was like, okay, like y'all don't want to just have a group together no more. Y'all want to get married, which is fine. And so, you know, the maintenance that goes into keeping up with those relationships, you know, as we're going into different stages of life, what does it look like to be intentional about maintaining those relationships as you sort of step into marriage or even stepped into motherhood, you know, with friends who might not be there? I can just personally sort of say, like, I've always appreciated like being sort of like invited, and some of it is I am also an extrovert, so I sometimes invite myself into folks' lives. But like, but for friends who've like made space for me, it's just always felt like great. I've never felt like a third wheel. I felt like an intentional auntie. Like, you know, I'm not, you know, I just like, you know, it's always just been really sweet. But I know that some people are struggling with like navigating that, and even just like the boundaries that come along with that. So, Malika or Brittany, do you mind sort of just sharing sort of like what it looked like to navigate, you know, boundaries or relationships with friends, like, you know, as you're in different stages. So whether you're a mom and they're not a mom, or, you know, like either way.
You want to go first?
Okay, sure. I think for me, you know, this is an area that I do feel really guilty about, because you know, before being married and before having a daughter, I felt like I was really good at connecting with my friends and keeping in touch with friends from elementary school all the way. I mean, this is something that, you know, I really enjoy doing. And then when I got married, I felt like I wasn't doing a great job because I was trying to spend all my time with him. And in retrospect, I'm glad I got to spend that quality time with him. But now being a mom during a pandemic, I feel like it's even harder. And just thinking about, okay, who have I not reached out to in a while? Can we at least get something on the calendar? And before, I don't feel like I had to be as rigid about that. I didn't have to use Google Calendar and schedule Zoom calls and, you know, plan months in advance. I don't feel like I had to do that as much, but now I feel like I have to be extremely intentional if I'm going to keep those relationships up, and understand that if they're real sister friends, that it's okay that a couple months goes by, and it's okay that we haven't talked or texted in a while, because that love is still there. And when we do connect, it's like we haven't missed a beat.
That's good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've realized that for me, in order to be a happy mom and a happy wife, like, and pour into my family, I have to fill my cup up. And for me, I've realized that filling my cup up means hanging out with my girlfriends and connecting with them. And so I crave that because I know I need it in order to be like fully positive and present for my family. So yeah, like, and shout out to all the husbands who support that, because I am super blessed to have a husband who not only supports it, but like pushes it. Like, why don't you call your friends and go out with them? Or why don't you go on a weekend getaway with them? And like, that is such a super blessing for me. So yeah.
Yeah, I would just say yes and amen to that, Brittany. One of the things that Lorenzo, when people ask him, when guys say, can you give me some advice? They're getting married. And he always says, does she have girlfriends? You know, make sure that you support her time with her girlfriends. Mm-hmm. Step up, you know, and make sure that's on the calendar, you know, and it's critical. So yeah, we need that time.
Courtney, how do you deal with the mommy questions? Why don't you have kids, or why would you want to consider that as a route to have children? How do you sort of navigate that?
Yeah, I think you know, in part it goes back to something Cherie said earlier about, you know, sort of like knowing yourself, and sort of having a level of like comfort and sort of just like, okay, like I know what I want, and I know sort of like school, right? And I think having that, I can't stop saying, sort of just like a group of women, even if that group is sort of a little bit smaller than like even just the bigger circle of sister friends, like being able to like actually sort of like wrestle out, like, I don't know how I feel about this, but I know what I want. And here's, some ways I'm sort of beginning to explore that and feeling safe, I think, to even question, things that I maybe would have had on my radar before. I think I've been fortunate that there's not been a whole lot of like sort of pressure from my family to be like, hey girl, like what's going on with your babies? Even though, I mean, it's a question and certainly like a desire. My parents, they want to have grandchildren. And I certainly want to have some for them. But I think navigating it, I think it's a very introspective process.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also maybe in connection with being, involved in just like birth work and being, with moms who are, of advanced maternal age, and just sort of like recognizing sort of, that there are sort of real, barriers or limitations or just kind of constraints to think about, in the path to becoming a mother. I think I try to balance sort of both, my own desires and like, what I think is possible for God to do with also just like science and like sort of the realities of just like what's happening in my body. And so I think having just like an open hand, but also sort of like some knowledge and facts in the back of my head as well.
Yeah. And I can say, Courtney, it's been really great sort of like navigating this conversation with you. So, full disclosure, Courtney and I are also roommates and single girls looking to get partnered. So hit us up. And so, like it's been cool to have someone to kind of like ask the crazy questions with and feel kind of like, or, throw out the theories and not feel judged. And so I'm really grateful for our relationship. I guess, can you think of a time that, I guess a significant moment in your life where a woman like showed up for you? Like what does that kind of look like? If you could, in like a minute, if you could, a story. I'm gonna go with Cherie.
Of course you are. I'm looking at there's so many stories.
I'm gonna start with Cherie because I want everybody to give us a little story. Story time.
We all can relate to this, that there's too many stories, right? I think when Jordan was 6 or 4 or 5, she was, we had her at a private school, and 2 women showed up and my Chantel, my sister Chantel, and Pam, in ways that I really needed them to show up because, when she was in this school, and what I did not know, they were pulling her out to get some support, but they weren't letting her know. She was the only little Black girl in this classroom. So, and then they were saying something was wrong with her developmentally. Now, her end story is this girl has graduated from college, a year at Oxford, magna cum laude, brilliant child. But when they tell you this, and this isn't your world, right? This is your child. You become fearful, all the things. And my sister Chantel is a teacher. And like I said, and Pam was a physician. And so I was just like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And they sat me down and they were like, first of all, no one tests kids this early. And just kind of lifted my head out of all the things that can happen to you emotionally. Something wrong with my child. What am I going to do? What does this mean? I mean, you can't imagine how quickly you start projecting your whole life. And they were able to speak truth to me. They were able to say, if it is something going on, we're going to be right there with you. But let's not go there right away. And they were right in that. And so and it was because of Chantel and just and her expertise, because I had none and I was in an emotional mess. But she was able to keep speaking to me and say, you know what, the problem isn't Jordan, the problem is the school. Let's get her out of this situation. And let's see what we can do, and that was pivotal.
That's good.
Yeah.
Get you a Chantal in your life, a Chantal and a Pam. Anyone else have a story they want to share?
I can share a story, and this is kind of a combination of stories, but I felt like I'd already gone through a grieving process. But during the pregnancy, I also thought I was going to lose my child. And so I was kind of thrust back into that and, scared about possibly losing the pregnancy, and grieving the fact that if I did keep the pregnancy, that I wasn't going to have my husband. So where I was mentally was not great.
Mm-hmm.
I think that my sister friends showed up for me in ways that, again, I didn't realize I needed. And so the picture that I have in my mind is laying on my couch, exhausted, feeling like things just weren't working in my favor in a host of things in my life. And girlfriends coming over with food, or taking me to the hospital if I needed to, and just kind of speaking life into me. And one friend in particular brought me a bag of maternity clothes and a teddy bear and a few other things. And I was thinking, I don't even know if I'm going to make it that far.
Yeah.
But it was helpful. So, and her name is Brandy. She saw the end from where I was. And even though I couldn't see the end of the pregnancy, I could not be in any space to be excited about this pregnancy. She was able to carry that excitement, even though I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really appreciate it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I would say for me, I'm thinking about, I guess that was years ago, when I had to go in for that surgery. And, if you don't have a LaToya in your life, you definitely need one. Because like I said, as a person who can kind of feel like, okay, like I'm independent, I'm gonna just like figure this out, for her to like, drop what she's doing, show up, take me to the ER, be there with me all night, and then like, getting on the phone and calling people and making sure that, things are taken care of. My mom showed up the next day, and just, I think she's a person who like tends to like the little things that, I wouldn't even like think to know to sort of like need for myself in that moment. And was really just, doesn't ask for anything, doesn't sort of like even like expect anything in return, but really just is like a nurturer and a person who's like a caretaker, but really just from that place of like friendship for me, and even just sort of in the grieving process of like, what does this mean now that, like I don't have two ovaries now, like, just even sort of like processing through that. So I think for me, definitely, you're a person who continually like shows up in ways that I couldn't even like qualify if I were to say like, oh, this is what I need. But, you show up in so many ways that I wouldn't even think of.
I love you, Courtney girl.
I agree. Get you a LaToya. I already shared my story, because that plane ride, I wouldn't have made it. I would have had that baby, those two babies, not in California, if LaToya hadn't flown with me with a baby in hand and two in the belly about to pop. But also this pandemic, in addition to LaToya, there are 3 other women who, like, this pandemic, everything was stripped. My way of replenishing myself and like connecting with my girls was taken away. And like, I found myself like balled up in my bed, like having a breakdown. And so getting through this pandemic, that is one of my stories with LaToya and these 3 other women doing Zoom calls, prayers, and they probably don't even realize how much that helped me get through, but definitely helped me get through a lot.
I guess as we kind of think about the pandemic, the double pandemic, honestly, that's going on, we think about COVID-19 and just all of the incidents of racial injustice that are being publicized, not to mention the ones that don't make the news. What does it look like to, I guess, navigate that and having, I guess, support with friends to sort of like talk some of that through? I know, Brittany, you talked about, using technology to be able to connect with friends. But I guess just in like, what other ways have we just like been intentional about obviously acknowledging the really hard things that are happening in our world, in our city, even sort of thinking about, the incidences of maternal mortality for Black women in this city. Like, what does it look like to have those conversations with friends, with sister friends, feel affirmed, feel heard and seen and known, given everything that's going on?
Well, for me, one thing that stood out when we just kept hearing about the killings in the context of this pandemic, and so you're just spread out. And I go to a church in the city, predominantly white church. I'm an elder in the church, but there are Black women and women of color in the church, and these two are my sister friends, and I just felt like I need to gather these women, and for us to just get together and grieve and lament and express anger, all the things that that just come to mind. And it was so important because the pandemic had us isolated, and then sometimes one can even feel isolated in our spiritual spaces when things like this show up, when the racial injustice was just right there in our face. And even though that's not the intention, it just sometimes it can feel that way. So I thought, like, yeah, we need to get together. There was a real desire to gather my friends, to gather the women and say, all right, let's talk about this. What is this doing inside of us? And to affirm one another's feelings about it.
That's good.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned this need to gather. And I feel like pre-pandemic, we were gathering naturally without even thinking about it. And now we have to do so much more planning. And, if we're together, we're wearing our mask and we're 6 feet apart and we're trying to be outside, and, we're doing all these extra layers. But when we do get together, it's so affirming. A friend of ours had a birthday a few weeks ago, and we were able to gather in her backyard, just a few of us, but it was a life-giving experience. And I think, it wasn't my birthday, but I felt that it was something that I needed, even for just a few hours that I was able to get out of the house. And, I think that we have to think about, and you're talking about your church. I mean, I miss being able to go to church with my friends. I miss being able to just be in, face to face with people. But I feel like we are finding different ways to do that and to grieve what's happening in our country, but not only to grieve it, to be activist and to get to work in our professional lives and our personal lives. I know a lot of people are getting involved in the upcoming election. So I feel like we're inspired to do something and to encourage each other to do it too.
Right. That's right.
So good. Yeah, so, it's just been really great to navigate life and relationships with all of you. I'm super, super grateful. You've all played very significant roles in my life. Brittany and I met in college, and I think about just like how intentional and thoughtful she's been, a cheerleader, just a bright smile, a powerful presence, just necessary. I couldn't imagine doing this life without you, girl. So I love you.
Love you.
Cherie, my fellow board member, I want to call you my big sister, but
Yes.
but yeah, girl, I'm not trying to offend you in front of the nations. But I have two older half sisters. One of them passed away a couple of years ago, and that was a really, really hard thing. But I believe that God is just super sovereign and intentional about reconnecting me with community and sisters and sister friends. And so for you to be that presence, even the one that you can cut your eyes at a board meeting, like, girl, do you know what are they talking about? And just know the nonverbal, like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
you saw what I saw. And so,
I love you, LaToya. So for you.
love you too, Malika. I've always admired you, just an accomplished woman, and beyond just having all of these accolades and these wonderful, things that you've done. I just appreciate that you charted your path and you're on it, and you invited this extrovert into it, and it just allowed me to be there. One of the most amazing moms that I've ever known, and as trusted me to be your doula in this process and to help provide childcare and everything with you. It's something that I will hold on to forever. So I'm just really grateful for your presence and just everything about you. You're just a dope woman. So thank you.
Love you. We couldn't have done it without you. Love you so much.
Hey, Courtney, my in-house homie roomie friend, the one, my fellow Floridian, my braid sister, my naturalista. You're an awesome friend. You are necessary. You are mandatory. You're smart. You ask great questions. You show up for me in ways that I also don't know that I need, and you remind me to sit down and take rest. So seeing you model that has been really special and sweet for me. And I know that we're going to be amazing moms when it happens for us, however it happens. But I'm really grateful to be able to have this conversation with you and for you to be a part of it. And so thank you. And so as I think about the dynasty, I think about the legacy, I think about the hitters, I think about the girls, I think about my sisters, I think about Steph Love and PD Brown, I think about my mom, I think about my DCUJ girls, I think about my roommates, I think about everyone. I'm super, super grateful to have a community of sister friends.
Yeah.
I really couldn't do this without my girls. And so I'm very grateful for you. My time, energy, and effort, honestly, in this season, especially given COVID-19 and the racial revolution, is dedicated to women who listen when I speak. I don't have to, and don't call into question my humanity. And these are my sister friends. So thank you so much. If you don't have a sister friend, get you one. It's mandatory. So thank you all for joining us. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye.